Hello, Green Hustle. Welcome back. I'm quite excited. Was that here with none other than... We're speaking to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
It's a good start. We're here with MP Nadia Whittome. I'm sure there's applause going on at home, everywhere. Anyway,
I think that I wasn't used to doing broadcast media.
I know. So is this your first interview that you've done? Or
Yeah.
Pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, and thanks so much for putting on this amazing event. It's really exciting.
Thanks for getting involved with it. Honestly, when we started this festival approximately 9 weeks ago, I didn't think we would have an MP sat here live in the studio, and not just any MP. So you're the youngest member of Parliament in the UK, which is pretty cool. Got in last year, and so congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks very much.
It's a bit late. I know the election happened a little while ago, but so we're going to get into a few bits and bobs with you today. I mean, I suppose just to sort of start out, like sustainability and the environment, would you say it's like a big issue for you, or?
Yeah, it's been one of my top priorities in Parliament. You know, the ecological and climate emergency that we face sort of overhangs everything else: racial inequality, poverty, food poverty, etc. Jobs crisis, all of it exists within the context of our planet is burning.
And speaking of climate and ecological emergency, there's a climate and ecological emergency bill.
There is, great segue.
Yes, there you go, I made that little
so this is Caroline Lucas's bill, my colleague from the Green Party, and I'm really proud to be one of the co-sponsors of that bill. So essentially, this would, if it becomes law, would force the UK government to take real serious action on the climate and ecological emergency. It's been a year or so since we passed a climate emergency, and so far we haven't really seen much action. So this would trigger that action. It would mean that we're not only looking at our carbon emissions in the UK, but also around the world, because it's no good doing what they've done in some countries and sort of offload our carbon emissions on the global south. Exactly. And it would also mean that we'd have to have a climate assembly that would have a real say over how we approach the climate emergency and have real powers.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, Climate Assembly. So, I mean, speaking of which, you're going to be joining us in a little while. So we've got Climate Assembly Nottingham.
I'm really excited about that.
Reimagining Broadmarsh. It's a very hot topic in Nottingham right now. So, really excited to chat.
I met with the Nottingham project last week, actually.
Oh, cool.
To talk about reimagining Broadmarsh. And there's some really exciting ideas floating around that I'm looking forward to getting involved in. Yeah,
and it sounds like it's opened up a bit anyway. And I mean, just doing a little bit of research earlier, it looks like the kind of number one option is for it now to be a mixed-use site and not potentially, hopefully, another into-style shopping centre. So that would be great.
Exciting.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Yeah, and it sounds like they've already been doing a bit of groundwork on the sort of engagement side and seeing what people want out of the space. So
they told me that they'd had hundreds of proposals from people who had been sitting on this for years and years. And it reminded me, actually, when I was younger, my ex-boyfriend at the time, we used to walk around the meadows where we live and look at like Bridgeway Centre and say we'd put a rooftop bar there, we'd invest in that, we'd make this into a massive site for like music and stuff. And it's just really exciting that we've got that opportunity with the Broadmarsh to really reimagine what our city looks like.
It's exciting just getting into that space, isn't it? Just like kind of looking at the world afresh and being like, okay, actually, what do we want out of it? It feels like maybe we're reaching a bit of a turning point where the old sort of neoliberal consensus is waning a little bit, and actually people are going, oh, maybe actually it isn't all about business and it isn't all about GDP and bottom lines and that kind of thing. And actually people are starting to open up a bit and realise we also need some community in there and stuff, don't we?
I think COVID has forced that to happen.
Yeah.
That there's far more of an emphasis on people's well-being. And it's also shown that when the government thinks that there's an emergency, it can act fast.
The magic money tree is actually...
Yeah, we found it.
Yeah, we found it, yeah.
But the only thing is that as a result of all that government spending, people don't have more power. Poverty and inequality hasn't really been addressed. So yes, it's good that the government is spending money, but we don't want blanket corporate bailouts without any conditionality on them to the environment, the climate, to workers. We need that money to be targeted and for it to be used to give people power and allow people to hold on to that power.
Yeah, that's it. It's got to be sort of generative, hasn't it? And the best decisions come from the furthest down the chain, not from central government, really.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so
things like this.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, and we did this on a fairly small budget. You'd be surprised because we've obviously got this amazing Sherwood Forest location here. But anyway, yeah, I did find. Sorry, I know we're totally going off the topics here, but
that's okay. This is good.
Yeah, like the thing that struck me was that and my experience on a personal level through COVID, like I've been. Very lucky in terms of I work for a great employer, Left Lion, who you know,
my favourite publication.
So I put it this way. I mean, I didn't lose out on any pay there, and I got a bit of self-employed support, but that was all right for me, Jack. But it didn't make sense to me that the people who were already in decent jobs and had already been, so self-employed people that had been going a little while and maybe got their businesses set up, got more money, whereas people that started out COVID with nothing got nothing really. They got job seekers basically, didn't they?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's a topsy-turvy way of doing things, if you ask me. But it's all about asking you really anyway, because that's what we're here to do, isn't it? So, I mean, what do you think are the kind of, environmentalism? I think people have a certain idea of who's into environmentalism and sustainability and that kind of thing, and that maybe kind of, so it feels like quite a lot of communities are excluded from it. Like, what do you think the barriers are to kind of getting everyone behind this this need to change our approach to the environment?
Yeah, I think there's very much a perception and a reality that the climate movement and sustainability is very white, very middle class, which needs to change because it's black and brown people, it's working class people in this country and all around the world who have the most to lose from the climate emergency. There's a really interesting project in Nottingham called Decolonise, Decarbonise, which seeks to address that, and I'm really keen to work with them. And there are also influencers and activists around the country, like there's a young woman called Michaela Loach, who's still a student and is massively leading the way on climate issues. Another woman called Scarlett Westbrook, who's she's 16, and we're working together on a bill in Parliament actually called Teach the Future, which is written by youth strikers, and Scarlett's one of them, and is about decarbonising and greening up the whole of the education sector, from education in schools to retrofitting buildings and
cool. Yeah, I spoke to Decarbonise like a few days before the festival and was like, wow, I wish we could fit you in, and obviously so much content in today. There was already stuff we couldn't squeeze in. Sorry to everyone who sent a creative submission that hasn't gotten in yet, but we're gonna. This is the beginning for us. We're gonna make sure we get all our content out after the festival in nice little bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, and this doesn't have to be the first one, right? We can do this again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Hockley Hustle and Green Hustle. So we're trying to. We've got. If you want to join and be a green hustler, we're all about keeping this going really. So we've already got I think we got 150 people sign up to be a green hustler. We're going to keep them going with lots of stuff to get engaged with and just keep them in the conversation, really keep them active. And it's really just all about inspiring people. Hockley Hustle has always been about inspiring people to have that sort of civic responsibility, that communitarian, let's get together, let's make space for everybody kind of thing. So yeah, that's what it's all about really, isn't it?
No, that's incredible, and I'm really keen to keep working with you and all of the people who sign up. That'll be great.
Oh, thanks. What do you think is so obviously you're a Notts girl. What do you think is all the difference between the way people go about grassroots sustainability kind of activities in Nottingham and in London? What's the vibe like down there?
I think it's very different in Nottingham to in London. There's far more of a community spirit here. People identify with the city. We really love our city. in Nottingham, whereas in London I think people identify more with their borough rather than with the city as a whole. And I guess because of the gentrification that's taken place over the last few decades, it's meant that working class people have been pushed out of the centre. And like, to be honest, where I am in London, in Westminster, it's dead. Like Starbucks and a Pret, a Cafe Nero, and that's about it.
I lived in London for about 6 years. I had a little venture down there, working in the music industry and that kind of thing. It kind of seemed like the sensible option, but yeah, I you know, coming back to Nottingham was literally just like getting in a bath of hugs and community and warmth after that time down there.
That's exactly how it feels when I come home every week.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm home.
Oh,
like, I sit in Blend and do my emails.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Shout out Blend. Yeah, we love Blend. You're a Snetton Market fan, aren't you?
I'm a massive Snetton Market fan.
Yeah, it's great. We love.
I went and got a little leopard print collar for my dog yesterday at the pet shop.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a piece earlier that was just going around chatting to a few of the people as like sustainable fashion focus, but some of the awesome little businesses down there doing their thing.
Did you speak to Megan at the
I didn't speak
shop?
to any of them. I left it to Christine. So
they're awesome. I went in there
Megan at the yarn shop. No. But yeah, we love it down there. Obviously, we love Hockley as well, but it's cool to see the city like spreading out a little bit this way.
But no, I do love Hockley.
It's what, sorry?
It's not my constituency.
It's not cool. Is Centre Market your constituency?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, right. Oh, fair enough. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry. I wasn't thinking about that. Oh, yeah. Silly me. Okay.
Slightly bitter that Hockley's not. But I've got the best constituency. So
it's a good job we're not at Hockley Hustle, eh? So, but yeah, it's good to see it spreading out and that more space for creative businesses and independent businesses and stuff. Definitely love a bit of Snetton Market. So, on to the next question. Do you think sustainability issues and social mobility are kind of causally linked? How do they intertwine?
Yeah, absolutely. I think. First thing to say is that I think climate and sustainability is a class issue. It affects working class people first and the hardest. You know, like poor air quality affects working class children and adults more because we tend to live in the inner city. But then I think that the narrative around sustainability can be quite classist sometimes, and I've got no interest in blaming working class people for not shopping organic. We know that it's big corporations and the multinationals that create the vast majority of our carbon emissions, and that's really where our focus should be. But also, of course, it shouldn't be the fact that being on a low income stops you from being able to live sustainably. So that needs to be made more affordable for people, and that's not an attack on the climate movement. That's a reality of the capitalist system that we live in, but that needs to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been uncovering some really interesting stories. I think there's one coming up a little bit. I think the guy's name's Aaron in Snetton. He actually he got hold of a bit of land. So something I'm a bit obsessed with, and something we're looking at a bit later, is this idea of the commons, and we have this kind of cultural commons, and we have this physical commons, and you know, so it's obviously this old commons idea of like this shared space, you know, before, and it was how a lot of people survived, and a lot of the landless classes made their income. So I kind of just think
another thing that's become more political during COVID, I think, or perhaps not more political, but we've realised how political space is. That the attacks on people going to parks, when if you live in a tower block or if you've got a really tiny yard, then how are you meant to exercise? Yeah.
Well, we've got a whole section coming up on space. We're going to be having a look at the enclosure walk in Nottingham, which covers some of that history. And then we're going to be asking about kind of what is the commons and these kind of things. So I just kind of feel like if people can start sort of, David Mellon sorted this guy out, got this land that was council owned, and since the beginning of lockdown he set up a community garden, turned the space around, regenerating the space, turning it into a productive food growing space. This stuff really gets me excited.
Have to go down and visit.
Yeah. So you get to hear about them in a little while if you're sticking around.
Yeah,
anyway,
I will.
Awesome. So, onto the big politics stuff again. The 2050 carbon neutral target that we've got as a country, what do you think about it?
It's nowhere near soon enough. We know from all of the scientific evidence that it's what we do in the next decade that is going to determine whether we've got a planet left to live on, not what happens in the next 30 years. And even so, along the current rate, we're not set to achieve our 2050 target until 2098 anyway. So it's both too late and the action that's being taken is not enough to even reach that target, which is too late.
Yeah,
we need to decarbonise by 2030, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen under the Tories now. But I sit on the Environmental Audit Select Committee, which is a cross-party group of MPs, and we scrutinise the government's spending and their climate actions to make sure that they're meeting their obligations.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be working really hard on that committee, particularly talking about how we build a green economic recovery after COVID.
Yeah, the Green New Deal, basically. And the thing is, this work's been done for so long. It was ready to go at the 2008 financial crisis, and what have we done again? We've chucked loads of money at the banks to increase liquidity and all this rubbish. Not obviously politically totally impartial, but yes, it's not really enough, and it's kind of depressing that it's like it did set a benchmark. I think we were the first country to put in such an act, weren't we, for the 2050 target, but not particularly ambitious really when you look at things. And everyone's saying not really cool. But anyway, so just a last quick one. As a city, we do have the UK's most ambitious carbon neutral target of 2028.
Yes, it's very, very exciting. And as the local MP, I'm totally committed to working with the council to make sure that we can meet that together. Because of course, this decade of cuts that have been meted out to local government have meant that it's very difficult for local government to come up with the sort of transformative ideas that we need. So, just like we led the way with our green and publicly owned bus company, I've no doubt that we'll lead the way here, not just with the council, but with the help of community groups like this, and particularly the ones in my constituency.
Awesome. So, thanks so much for coming down and having a chat with us today. I'm really looking forward to hearing
thank you for having
more
me.
from you at the Climate Assembly Nottingham meeting later.
Yeah, me too.
So
Very exciting.
And it was really lovely to meet you. Anyway,
Yeah, you as well. Great to meet you.
Pleasure.